Hey Vidit, welcome to Designing the Studio. So, every time I've met Vidit, we've had long, non stop conversations. Today, it's mostly going to be him speaking because I want to pick his brain on a lot of questions that have come to mind in our previous conversations. Today, I want to talk to you about self learning. We are both self taught designers, consultants, whatever we do has been mostly self taught. But tell me a bit about that. How has your journey been? I know you didn't start with an arts and design background, but here you are today working with some amazing brands. So, how did that begin?
So it's been around 8 years, so 9 years since I've been designing now. But I come from a commerce background. I am Marwari by blood, so there was no designer artist like in the long horizons that I could see. But I was always keen on doing something that would satisfy my curiosity. So design was not the main outlet. Like I was looking for anything that would keep me thinking, keep me iterating, and design actually became just a path that I took because I was experimenting with a lot of things as a kid. I would be into guitar, I would be into dance, I would be into learning random softwares online. And while I was studying BCom in college, I would make posters for festivals and whatnot, and that kind of got me some sort of community or connection where people would want to reach out, they discuss ideas, and that was very satisfying. Now, as someone who does not know any designer or anyone in the industry, I didn't even know what path I could take. So forget a syllabus, the journey or the milestone was also not very clear at that point. But I was very keen on it. My family were a bit hesitant at the start, but they gave me the grace of 3 years, which is how long my BCom degree was. They're like, until then, whatever you can figure out, you do. Otherwise, we have the backup option of just getting into business or something. And to get started, like my college would end at around 9:30 a.m. So it would
Wait, what? Ninth? It would end at 9:30 a.m. What does that mean?
it would start at 6 a.m. and this was like the prized college slot. It was called BCom morning for a reason because one, they only allowed boys for some reason, and this was kind of optimized so that anyone who wants to do like an MBA or a CA has the entire day to do their tuitions and coaching. So
Okay, that makes a lot of
would
sense.
actually
Yeah.
come from outside because they can do a double degree together and get a head start. I was also able to do that then. But after college, I kind of found this retired art college professor who would help like teach children drawing and teach like youngsters prepare for NID and NIFT exams. So I went to him saying that, hey, I will not do a formal degree. I want to learn everything that I can. And he appreciated the passion or dedication I came with. And I would be there like around 10-12 hours a day every day. I'd have lunch with his family, I'd teach his younger students and whatnot. But he was primarily a artist, and the fine art skills was very helpful. And I fundamentally believe that everything you learn kind of ties into whatever you want to do. So after that, I would study branding and graphic design by myself. That was chaotic because what I'd do is I'd find every book that you can on design and then figure out which one I can buy. The ones I could, I'd buy. The ones I could not, I'd just find a PDF somewhere.
Yeah, because design books are really expensive, and as a student, it's very hard to buy them.
Yeah. My philosophy was that I was always insecure from the start that, hey, from someone coming from a non-design background and people are already studying and doing good, how can I even compete with them when I'm like so behind? But because I was in a college, I saw that even a college has like ranking system, right? Just because you got into the college doesn't mean you're going to be successful. It is your nature as a person. And I realized that the design college gives you the most appropriate environment. They'll give you the tools, they'll give you the resources. Now it is up to you what you can do with it. And I think I was researching all the colleges that exist and what they have to offer. And when you go into the rabbit hole of Reddits and all these kind of forums, you realize that the resource, the libraries, and the workshops is where you can fully utilize the power of the education. I'm like, well, I'll just try to recreate that for myself. I would read things, I would literally Google how to be a good designer, and they say a good designer is someone who knows typography well. So I straight drove into custom lettering. and I would stare at Helvetica and Arial for a week. I'm like, what is the difference? I do not know. But again, over time, it kind of came. I did this for a year, exploring different things.
So that, just for me to tie things together, you did this for a year in the sense of you were in first year of BCom honors and you were doing this after your college ended at 9:30 a.m.
Correct.
Okay, cool.
So after the first year, I was still like had nothing to call a portfolio at all, but I still wanted to talk to people who were design studios. My sister was a lawyer in Mumbai, so she would say that during New Year's and Christmas, please come, like I'll take you around, and like I'll pamper my younger brother. And this was also an opportunity for me to find like a good break into the industry and meet people who are actually doing things well. I knew I had nothing to offer, right? I am not a design student. I do not have a portfolio. I have nothing of value to a person, and I'm asking them for something. What I did have was words, and before design, I wanted to get into writing a bit. So I'd written these very heartfelt and like sharp emails to a few studios that I really liked, and like let's say I said 5 or 6 emails. The one I really wanted to like work with or talk to, I was thinking they will not reply. Of course, they're so big, but all the other ones did not reply, and only those guys replied. And I got a chance. I went to their studio in Mumbai. I talked to them, and the creative director and the founder. I talked to him about, hey, I'm trying to get into design, and I love the work you're doing, and I don't have a formal degree. How can I make it happen? He also suggested that, after BCom, do a degree, because what's 4 years of education compared to your grand span of career of 50-60 years? If it gives you a head start, why not do it? And I'm like, fair, but I have a deadline that I'm working with to kind of prove myself. So went back to Kolkata, and then the next year I again kind of upskilled myself. From typography and lettering, I started getting into branding. Like I look at case studies and I'd evaluate why is this working. And I would try to create my own personal projects by tying skills. Okay, I know creative lettering, custom lettering. I'll do a custom type mark for a brand. Then I'll make some visual language around it, put it on some packaging and whatnot, and see how it is. So after doing that, I was kind of getting decent at the skill set of it, where I did not know what I was doing, but I had enough of an output to show something. I used to classify myself as a monkey with a DSLR, that I had like a good output, but I did not know what I was doing. Now, by the end of third year, I was again going to Mumbai. I again sent an email to the studio, literally titled, "Hey, I'm back." And this time,
That's the kind of enthusiastic stuff we can really get away with when we're young. So it's kind of nice.
like when I look at those emails, I'm like, why was I doing that? And I reached there. The studio had kind of grown a lot in the past 1 year. I was talking to the founder again, and this time I was actually approaching him as a business advice. I'm like, I've started freelancing a little bit. My like friends from college are moving out of college, so starting their own things. I did a few logos and brandings for them, and he would ask me some sharp questions which I would not have an answer for. At the end of it, I was not prepared to ask for a job or anything, because I thought after working for 3-4 years and whatnot, I might have the courage to apply. But in the moment, I'm like, okay, you know what? Do you take interns? He's like, not really, because we kind of like having people for long term, and it was a very sharp, small studio. But he's like, the reason I'm entertaining you is because I found you interesting, and the little work you've shown so far was decent. So send me a portfolio over, we'll discuss. I went home. I did not have a portfolio. I just had scattered works. Like made it in a PDF, fatafat, I sent it across. I was able to get in. But again, the grace that I got, I cleared the interview in December. My college was still going on. So my degree would end in June. And I'm like, hey, I need to at least take the degree. So 6 months, can you wait for me? And they were like, hey, we're not hiring you because we need someone immediately. We're hiring you because we see potential in what you can offer.
Yeah.
Now, when someone trusts me, I get like so much responsibility in myself. Oh my God, they've trusted me. I need to prove myself. And in those 6 months, what I did is I'd send them an email every month calling them the status update, that what I did in the past month. I did this project. My sister was getting married, so I did this. I did a dance class, like, just like life updates on what is
Full
going
year
on.
diary. Yes.
And because I wanted to upskill myself, I started getting into motion design as well. I'm like, I want to offer more and more, because if I can't offer something at a very high skill level, I'll offer a lot of things that is okay, like acceptable. And this is where I realized that I was able to pick up motion very, very fast because I was trained in music and dance. So sense of movement and timing kind of came naturally to me. 6 months in, I finished college. I moved to Mumbai, and again, like I did with my art college professor, I worked in that company for 4 years. From an intern, I climbed to like the design lead. I was completing entire branding projects by myself. So they didn't have the concept of teams, by the way. One person entire project end to end,
That's
from the
incredible. Yeah.
naming to the design, packaging, handover, client calls, all of it. You'd have the creative director always guiding you, but in terms of hands, you were the only one. And because I started off with just hands, I did not have creativity or conceptualization, ideation. I was actually very, very fast at what I did. And that was the competence that set me apart. That when shit hits the fan and you need to do work that needs to be done, reliability kind of ends up becoming very important. So they're like, I can tell you what to do, but I know you'll be able to do it. So the open creative exercises is where I'd struggle with, but I would brute force my way through. I'm like, if my concepts are not working, instead of 10, I will give 40 concepts.
Yeah. Getting to quality through quantity.
Exactly. I'm like, something will hit, and I'm very introspective and evaluative. I'll figure out, okay, why this worked, why this doesn't work. And what happens is when you work with other people and you have a superior, their aesthetics and their philosophy kind of rubs off on you because you can have different styles, right? I am someone who's like, I'll shut off my brain because until I reach your standard or level, I will not question you. Once I have a certain level, I can consider having an opinion. But at that point, I will absorb everything you have to offer. I become a little replica of like how he would think and what we would do. And 4 years later, every skill kind of upgraded. Now I was able to creatively plan brands. I was doing the entire spectrum of things, and when I started my own practice, because I wanted to be a writer early on, I'd do like things on the side. Strategy came naturally because I learned business initially. Now when I start client project, the first thing I asked is, what is your costing, who is producing it, how are you making sure that your margins are intact, how much burn have you prepared for marketing. And these questions change the entire way I approach things because 50% of the clients I tell them not to work with me, or rather not to work with any branding agency. I'm like, your capital is so restricted right now that you can rather just get into distribution and flow and make your business rise a little bit than trying to appear to be very good but not have your foundations in place. So that actually made me a much more holistic and powerful designer, and everything was self-taught at the end of it.
Yeah, I mean, resonate with so many parts of that journey because the difficult parts where you have to literally Google. So when I started being a project manager, I had a knack for it, which is why I was hired for that role. But I literally had to Google, okay, how do you make project trackers? And there was no information that was relevant to the design industry. So I was constantly adapting things from corporate structures into what designers can use. So I guess in the last 10 years, I graduated from architecture. That was the last structured education that I've had. And in the last 10 years, everything has kind of started with a little bit of Google and now a lot of YouTube videos. And it's always been about transferring your skills from one industry to another. So I can see how for you, your business understanding from that BCom and probably other parts of just observing the world around you, that business understanding, that interest in writing, and then all your hard work towards learning the visual art and design skills, it all comes together to create the work that you are creating today. So it is a very challenging journey, but it's so rewarding because you end up becoming this very unique kind of person. I guess in my case, it's this very unique entity that is at the intersection of business for designers, whereas you are someone who can do design for business with that very sharp perspective. I mean, the fact that you can tell potential clients that don't work with me and don't work with any other designer, that's actually the biggest value add you can give to a potential client at some point of time. And the respect that they have for you, I'm guessing the respect that they would have for you in that moment would shoot up like that, because someone's saving them a lot of effort and a lot of investment that may not be the right investment at the right time. I know this journey is very hard as well. There are lots of kind of difficult moments, but there is something that keeps us going. Was there like a milestone or something that made you feel ki haan bhai, matlab सही कर रहा हूँ, let me keep going, let me just keep going on this journey.
See, in hindsight, we can find milestones. But honestly, until 1 or 2 years ago, when I actually had my own studio and was working by myself, I would be anxious all the time. I felt like a fraud trying to figure myself out. I would constantly upskill myself because I felt I had to prove someone or something I'm out there. Now, now I'm very grateful about it because I have become very good at what I do, and I actually ended up getting a head start. Because technically, if a design degree takes 4 years and the company I worked with would hire like after you have a 2-3 year experience, I got in after 3 years of education. I was the youngest person in the company, and the people I work with or the peers that I have are usually 3 to 4 years older than me. Now, in hindsight, all of this makes sense. Ki, oh, I got a head start. Oh, I did this project that my dad would call and be like, hey, you made this, right? So you have these little moments, but what happens is in the momentum of things, you don't notice them because the moment something is ending, you're about to witness a grateful milestone. There is something already else on your plate. You have to finish something, you're anxious about something else finishing because work never stops as a creative as well. And being a professional creative and being a passionate creative kind of gets lost when you're in the journey because once you get into the business side, the client expectations, your peers, your seniors, you kind of get involved in the industry. So milestones were almost negligible at that point. But what kept me going was that I wanted to be a good designer. I wanted to make work that I could be proud of. Like, hey, now this is something you place it next to the people I admire, then I won't feel shy of it. So I think that was the North Star I had. So the North Star was actually more important to me than milestones. Now I can look back and be like, oh, this project launched and they became big. But you can't plan milestones. Like, I can't plan I'll get this. Maybe a project I did 3 years ago became very big now, and a project same time I did not be successful. Now people will give me validation for the one that got successful because the business was successful. But in my head, I did a beautiful job for both of them, and I'm very proud of it. So milestones were becoming more externally charged rather than internally. So a North Star was more helpful for me in that sense.
That's true. I think a lot of designers end up getting popular or well recognized when the brands they have worked on achieve business success. And yes, I am sure that good brand design, good solid systems play a very big role in that success, but it's not everything. It's a percentage of the thing that led to success. So designers end up getting well known or start feeling successful by association. So it's very important to have that internal North Star of what's guiding you. Yeah.
Because what I think branding is a multiplier. So if you are 10, I can make you 20. So that's a 2x multiplier, let's say. The difference between 10 to 20 is 10. But the difference between 100 to 200 is 100. So now if a business had the potential to be 100, branding is making it seem 200 and you're like, oh wow, what a value add I did. But you have to realize that it's kind of a catalyst.
Yeah.
Not a milestone, but something very critical to me as a designer and a businessman was the respect and faith I can get from people. So the fact that the first boss trusted me when I did not have a degree meant a lot. So I overcommitted. The fact that that art college professor believed me and said that, hey, come and study under me, I devoted myself. So I see clients to be kind of like that. There are countless options out there. There are people with bigger teams, there are people with bigger names, and they come and they trust me. So the fact that they are getting involved with a process where I don't know what I will give them until I give it to them, they don't know what they'll receive until they receive it. So it's a huge black box. And trusting a random person they don't know with a lot of money for something that is very dear to them is huge stakes. So the fact that anyone decided to trust me with that is of most value to me. So because I prioritize that, it ends up compounding in the long run. I'm like, hey, we'll figure out costing, we'll figure out commercials, we'll figure out whether we can work or not. But in the long run, if my name ever comes in your mind, I hope you remember me fondly. That's kind of like the smaller things I focus on.
Yeah. I think trust is the name of the game. So milestones feel like a very high thing to aim for. So let's switch focus away from milestones. Let's talk at the basic level. When did that anxiety of having to prove yourself start to ease out?
So when I left my previous organization and I was like again by myself, I was figuring out, do I go out and get my masters? Do I do freelancing? Do I start my own thing? Do I join some other company? That kind of left me in a void where there was no one supervising or telling me what needs to be done. So at that point, I had to introspect and be like, what do I want to do? Because I was disconnected from the community anyway. There was no superiors now and no peers now. So at that point, I realized that in hindsight, hey, I have done decent work. And even 5 years later, I'm fond of it. It's not bad. And now what I want to do is not chasing ki, oh, look at them, they're doing so good, look at them, doing so good. I started focusing on, hey, I want to make this, I want to do this kind of a branding. And that's when a philosophy hit me and kind of became like a primary foundation, is that the top of the tower is not a throne but a field. What meant is that at the start I was so anxious because I think I had to gun for that position and there's a hierarchy and a ranking that I need to climb. And it was a climb, like there was a journey that I was learning. I felt like I might fall someday. But after reaching a point, I realized that there is no pedestal that I want to sit on. After a certain point, it's you defining your journey, like how I'm doing branding, but do I want to do strategy more? Do I want to work with big corporates? Do I want to work with small studios? Do I want to work with international clients, Indian clients? All of that becomes the decision which makes me happy rather than decision that is putting me on a ranking. So that mindset completely changed, took the anxiety away, because now I'm not competing, now I'm not trying to prove myself, evaluating my value versus other people's. It's just that, like, oh, you like murals and illustrations, so cool, I also like it. So I can just see things for the passion of it and their journey, rather than, oh, are they a better designer, are they doing this? It's not an ego game anymore.
Yeah, like they say, I mean, comparison is the thief of joy, but I also think that comparison, we can shift that from comparison to inspiration, or rather connection. That instead of saying that, oh, you and I are competitors, it just becomes something for us to connect over and talk about. So, yeah, I love that metaphor of the top of the tower is a playing field. You said a field, but
Yes.
I'm imagining it as a playing field because it's all like creative work and so much exploration to be done.
Yeah.
Thank you for taking us through your journey, and I know that it's always so nice for me to talk to you about this entire journey of self-learning and working our way into very specialized areas for ourselves, and I know it's going to be so useful for any young designer out there as well. Now I want to switch gears and actually talk to you about how things are as of today. So, about running a creative business. First question, what's one habit that you have that you feel keeps your business running quite smoothly?
I think it would be the value I place on reassuring clients or the people I work with, which is that if it takes me 2 extra calls, 3 hours extra, and the fact that I want to present work that I am proud of. If it takes me 1 week extra, I'll drop them an apology note that, hey, I have enough things to show you and it will be good. But I don't think it is something I can proudly say that, hey, I made it and I'm so glad I made it for you. So having that principles set from the start and knowing that the clients also trust me with it, that, hey, he's taking longer not because he was lazy, but because he's actually trying to do something. That has given me good returns in terms of the faith and value clients end up having, because I am not a very organized or systemic person. So there is a lot of chaotic system that I work with. In the end, the outcome still works out. That is because I always value what the clients should get and how much I can deliver.
Yeah, I think your one-on-one human connection kind of balances out the otherwise chaotic creative system.
Exactly, and they
Yeah.
know that I'm committed to them fully, because I'm very transparent about everything. That, hey, I have only 2 projects or 3 projects going on. I welcome them into my lifestyle as well. That, hey, I made this coffee. When you come to go, I'll kind of make you drink it. So it becomes a very personal bond where I don't see them as just clients. It is that, hey, you've trusted me for 6 months with something very dear to you, and I want to do justice to it. So it's not technically a habit, but let's say an approach to how I see the people who come to work with me. And that correlates to everyone, not just clients. But let's say the fact that you trusted me with this podcast, like, making sure that I'm able to add value, making sure that I'm able to do justice to it, that is kind of a very important principle I live with.
Next question. What is the idea or what is the approach that helps you make decisions when you're not 100% sure what to do?
So there are two sides to it. One is the intention with the other parties approaching. So if I can trust the kind of passion they have, if I can trust the kind of respect they have for the work and craft, then that usually allows me to be more gentle and kind with those people. And second is, for example, if we take a practical example, I have 3 inquiries. I have to choose one or two of them, which one to take, which not to take. One could be a bigger ticket size, one could be more interesting, one could possibly give me more long-term returns based on how successful they be. At that point, I kind of figure out which one will give me the most joy, because clients work with me not because just of the work I've done, but when I take them through why and how I did it, the sheer obsession and passion with which I explain, okay, see this small thing I made, that is what convinces them more, not how big the brand was or how large the ticket size was. So where I can fully obsess myself without thinking about other variables, that is one way to prioritize. But again, in hindsight, it becomes easier. In the moment, you can't predict everything in the future. So I have this philosophy that you take a coin and you flip it, and it doesn't matter whether it's heads or tails. It matters what you wished it landed as.
Yeah.
So there are
Yeah.
3 scenarios. One, you flip it, you see it in the air, you wish for a side. If that's there, you already know your answer. Second, you couldn't decide because it's still very vague. It drops and it lands somewhere. Are you okay to accept the decision, or you're like, "अरे, एक और बार कर लेते हैं?" Then if you do it again, and then it lands on the other side possibly, now you know which one you were feeling better about. So ideally, if it's either a fuck yes or a no, so if it's in the middle, then ideally it's better for you to figure out why it's not either side.
There's also this, your approach reminds me of this other framework that's there, and I've kind of written about this here as well. It's by Dr. Susan Jeffers. It's called the no-lose decision-making framework.
Okay.
Which basically, how we make pros and cons list. That I have 3 options. You can't even do heads and tails in 3 options. So I have 3 options. If we start looking at the pros as well as cons, the cons start feeling much bigger. We start focusing more on the cons because we want to protect ourselves against it, and we kind of spiral in just the cons of every option. But if we just look at the pros of each option, and probably the con of one option can be reframed as the pro of another option as well. So when you make just a list of positives, you see what is giving you the best positive outcomes as of today, because we can't control the future. We don't know what's going to happen in the future. We can only take a decision based in the present moment. But even that eventually comes down to the same thing that you said, that intuition, that fine, maybe one of them is paying you 7x or 10x, and that is a financial requirement in the moment, then it becomes a logical decision. But if all the factors are kind of similar, it eventually comes down to what you're also saying, which is intuition. You have to be in touch with your intuition, and there are so many different ways of just getting back to our intuitions, because that is what has kind of been beaten out of us in the pursuit of logic. So yeah, thanks for sharing your approach. Okay, so Vidit, you've been working for about 7-8 years, out of which half the time was with a larger team, half the time has been you working on your own, and I'm sure that your creative rhythm and everything has varied a lot over time. So what have you discovered? What works best for you? What have you discovered about yourself with this in the last few years?
I do like the isolation of it a bit in terms of the process, mainly because I am slightly chaotic in the process nature. Maybe I start directly from an idea of a packaging, then I link it back to the naming, or I start with the naming and kind of trickle down into different things. But that chaos is very controlled, in the sense that while I know what the start will be, I know what the end I'll arrive at, but the process internally is kind of very loopy. Then from that chaos I start systemizing things. I kind of create sections, segments, and categorizing. So my presentations are so thorough and precise that they don't seem chaotic at all. It feels like this one concept that's being carried across the thread. And I started imagining branding as a book which is read in unexpected tangents. What that means is you don't read it linearly. A customer can approach it from any page that they can, because you don't control where they come in from. So the chaos actually helps me define each panel independently, but connecting them in a larger scheme so that it still makes sense if you see
To
all
the
of them
client,
together.
so that like internally everything is happening all over the place, which is how you thrive, and then you kind of bring it all together for the client.
Correct. I do miss collaboration and talking to people and discussing things, but when I'm in the trenches of actually working, I still prefer the deep work where completely unaffected or with people. Let's say after 1 month of being in the den, I like to show it to people, because a rabbit hole in the end is a rabbit hole. You get caught up in certain loops, but that has helped me on, which is why I also took this solo studio identity and not like scaling out to become a larger team.
We've talked a lot about the client facing side of things. I'm curious, what are the kind of clients that excite you, that energize you, and how do they find you?
So, this is a problem every designer faces, but I kind of take it to the extreme where my social and digital presence is negligible. My Instagram has no posts, and my work is only there on my website, and even then, only 40% of my work is listed as a case study. But because I value the faith that the clients come with me so much, even leads that I know will not translate, I give them a lot of time at the start so that I can help them in this unfamiliar industry.
Now, in all these years of working on design projects, what is one feedback or an outcome that has really stayed with you now that you look back on your design journey?
I think the one that comes out at the forefront is when I was working on the project Neon. We had done a major change for them. Like the name used to be something else, we changed it completely. The branding, animation, I'd gone to their house, redid their space and everything. And it was very dear to them because they had the previous identity for like 8 years or whatnot. I'd said something that I even forgot at that point, but the client reminded me at the end of the project that we were able to trust you unconditionally because you told us that if you ask me for something, I will give you that. If you don't ask me for something, I will give you the best that I can possibly can. And they're like, we trusted that if we tell you to make something, you will make it. We could clearly see you could, but it was very clear that you will push yourself to do the best for us, which is why we were able to take the leap of faith, and now it's like working very well. It's grown on us, and the fact that we were able to take the leap because we are so committed is something that really helped us. And this has kind of been the common feedback or emotion I want from a client, because a lot of clients come to me saying that I would want a designer who is almost like a part co-founder, and talking to you always feels like you care about the business as much as we do. Beyond design, beyond commerciality, you come with the approach of just making sure we are okay.
That's beautiful, and I think that's a really unique thing that a few designers are able to bring into the process, and you're one of them. So thank you for sharing this entire journey with us. Thank you for being on Designing the Studio.
Of course,
And
my pleasure.
we'll keep talking. Yeah.
Like, this is the milestone I kind of targeted, right? Like, after 8 years, I'd like to be in the podcast with Nishita.
I guess I started the podcast on time for you to be.
Yes, yes.
Thanks for being on here.
Anytime.